What's going on, y'all? This is Sean, and I wanted to tell you guys about um, how my wife and I compost. So, yes, we compost. We've composted actually for a long time now, and I will be very quick also to say with that we compost lazily. We do not put a whole lot into our composting because we just don't really have the brain capacity currently to devote the time to generate and compost quickly. Now, before I get into the ins and outs of that, let me tell you why we compost. So I just put it this way. Think about especially if you're one who cooks, you're constantly using onions and potatoes and maybe you chop apples for your kids, or maybe you peel sweet potatoes, or garlic, or any of that type of stuff. You use eggs. All of these things is organic material. And when I say organic, I mean stuff that is like not organic in the sense of what you buy from the grocery store, but more so like stuff that comes from living things. But you get all this material that comes from the food that you eat. And typically, what we do, oh, even bones, chicken bones, beef bones, whatever. And typically, what we do is throw that stuff in the trash. But do you not understand that that stuff is natural? Like, literally, in a world that was like not operating the way ours does, that stuff would naturally go to the ground and turn back into dirt. And that's something that we thought about a lot in our before we start to compost many years ago. And it just started feeling right to actually, instead of just throwing that stuff in a plastic bag that goes into a landfill and stays there in the plastic bag, it just felt more right to, for us, I want to say, to actually compost that. And on top of that, we actually, do vegetable gardening. If you follow me for a length of time, you know that we do vegetable gardening and whatnot. And so, it's like, hey, we can actually return this stuff back to the soil, and then it will actually serve to kind of provide nutrients for the next vegetables that we eat as a family, and it'll make them even more healthy. So that's why we do it. Now we do it lazily. We do lazy composting because, again, we just don't really have the brain capacity at this moment to, do all the right things, the browns and the greens having the right ratios and all that kind of stuff. The truth is, really, if you just put that stuff out there in nature and let nature, so to speak, do its thing, then that stuff is going to decompose and it's going to turn into soil. Now, it may take longer if you don't turn it all the time, and if you don't have the right ratio of browns to greens. If you have composted or looked it up to any length, you know what I'm talking about when I say browns and greens. Um, but it may not generate as fast as you would really want compost to. But for us, it works, and it still actually breaks down relatively quickly with what we do. So anyway, let's go show you guys how we do our lazy composting. All right, what's going on, y'all? So um, we compost, and we do it the lazy way. The reason why I say lazy way is, in theory, what you want to do is you want to turn compost. You want to keep it moving so it can break down fast to get that oxygen in there, because you have aerobic composting, which is like whenever you use oxygen, it kind of goes faster, the pile gets hot and all that kind of stuff. You got anaerobic, which is without oxygen. It's just a slower process. Ours is anaerobic. We don't really have enough brain space to be constantly turning this stuff right now, but we still compost it. We do it the lazy way. So I'm gonna show you kind of like what we do, and maybe you will be motivated to compost because of our very simple approach. All right, so you caught me right when I'm about to put some fresh scraps and whatnot into our compost bin, which is this galvanized steel trash can. And let's see what we got up in here. So first of all, before I even get into that, you see, this is a 5-gallon bucket we got from Tractor Supply. And this is what I use to keep vegetable scraps and all the other kind of scraps we get out of our house, like out of the kitchen and whatnot. There are special bins and whatnot that you can get, like, fashionable bins and whatnot. I don't, I'm not really worried about that. This works just fine, and you don't have any odors or anything associated with it. That top on there closes very tightly, so I don't get any odor issues. All right, so let's look at what we have in here. This is what we put in our compost. So you got vegetable peels and stuff, like you see sweet potato stuff in here. You see, banana peels and scraps from broccoli, onion peels, and etc. You got coffee grounds and filters, specifically the brown filters that are compostable. What else is in here? You see eggshells, eggshells from the eggs that we eat. That stuff is in here, and just other kind of organic vegetable scraps. We'll put chicken bones in here, like after we eat chicken and use the chicken to make broth. We put that stuff in here. We also put in here chicken, like since we have chickens, we put their the bedding, the used bedding from there that has manure in there, and chicken feathers and whatnot. We put that in here as well. And that really is supposed to help to break the stuff down, in particular the manure from the chicken. So let's go ahead and put this in there. All right, so let's see. Now what you see in here is just, also the stuff we've gotten from the inside of our house, which is, all the vegetable scraps and the eggshells and the coffee grounds and filters and the chicken bones and stuff, especially when they've been used for broth. But also what you see in here, that actually is bedding from our my parents' rabbit. We keep their rabbit from time to time, and so that stuff is compostable, of course, as well as the rabbit manure. And so we just throw that in here too. There weeds in here, as well as even dirt. A lot of times what we'll do, we'll cover this stuff in dirt once we have put the fresh stuff in. All right, so let's dump this fresh stuff in here. All right, let's see. All right. Ooh, so you see, we kind of had this stuff in for a while, so some of this stuff is kind of juicy. But again, no odors or anything in the house. No odors at all, because we have that top on the 5-gallon bucket, and I promise you don't smell it at all. Okay. What we would do is, like I said, we would get old used bedding from the chicken coop over there and cover that with the used bedding, that has manure and all that kind of stuff. Right now the chickens are kind of in there because it's cool outside today and they ain't trying to get out of there. So the bedding that I need to kind of recycle, I can't access it because the chickens are in there. I'm gonna let them kind of stay warm. So I just have some old wood chips that are here beside our garden fence, and I'm just putting those on top of here. Just put a light covering over this, and then yeah, that'll be it for today. All right, so thankfully it looks like the chickens have come out. I think they heard me. They wanted to see what in the world I was doing, so they're kind of curious. And you see, I actually need to clean out down there, but I really need to clean their nesting boxes inside of there. So I'm gonna give them some of these oats to kind of make sure they stay occupied out here. Then I'm gonna go and get some of the bedding in there and put it on top of the compost bin. All right, so now that they are occupied, I'm gonna come in here and get some of this bedding in here. So let's see what we got going on. There we go. And we got 2 eggs in here too, so let me grab those. Coop soon, but we won't worry about that. Grab those eggs out of here. Now we're going to get this old bedding out of here. It's kind of long overdue. Ideally, you do want to wear like a face mask or something. Probably be a good idea. But I just try to not stir stuff up too much. But this stuff has manure, which will eventually, when we put this compost in our garden, it will help us to make great fertilizer. Just in a nutshell is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, this is really all that there is to it. Put this stuff in there. Now compost bin, turn it, let it decompose naturally, and it don't take a whole lot of our time. You know, it kind of is a method that works for us, and that's pretty much all that I gotta say. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and dump this stuff in here. Like I said, I have my mask on me, so I'm kind of trying to make sure I'm kind of out of the way of the dust. All right, and there you have it. That's how we do our lazy composting. Hopefully this is informative enough for you. I'm curious to know what your comments are. And I'll say this too. This is, in my opinion, another part of living healthily. And I think that the more that we kind of align with the way God made stuff, returning stuff to the soil that feeds the next generation of vegetables and fruits, um, and then eating that stuff ourselves, the healthier we'll be. The healthier we'll be. Okay, so just consider that. I hope this helps you, and make sure you subscribe, like, share, all that kind of good stuff. All right.